Hey guys, it's your boy 14 Fluffies here. Today we have a post-regional deck profile featuring the man Appsaldri800.
Hello, Nick Marco fans and 14 Fluffy fans.
Okay, and before we start, I'm just going to say I'm going to shut up this time. So, let's get into the deck profile.
So the deck I decided to bring to this regional this time was a creation that I've been working on for the past couple months since the last regional that Nick and I went to. It's a deck I like to call Reptile Swarm, which is basically a swarm deck to summon out a bunch of monsters, push in for a lot of damage, and try and finish off the opponent as quick as possible. And the reptile factor is designed this deck to focus more or less on the reptile monster type. And I also added in like a mini alien engine to circumvent and to basically allow that theory to become somewhat of a reality. And it's worked out really well from a lot of testing. So for the most part, I'm pretty happy with the results on how this deck performed. Even though I didn't do very well at the event, this deck still put in a lot of work with what it was able to do, and with the cards I've added into it.
Quick question: do you think people were expecting this kind of stuff, and what kind of stuff would they be signing for this kind of stuff?
I'm sure people weren't
Would
really
not
expecting
expect
this, but they could, if they were, they would expect to see some kind of rogue matchups of like a lot of Xyz spam decks, maybe synchro spam decks, which is kind of what this deck can do. It can kind of do a little bit of both for both synchro and Xyz summons.
Okay, so let's just get into the deck profile.
Excuse me.
You're good.
So for the monster lineup for the start of the reptiles, we got triple alien shock trooper, 1900 beater of a level 4 vanilla monster, and then we've also got 2 alien ammonites and then 1 rescue rabbit.
Mind explaining to the people what the effects of Ammonite would be?
Sure. Alien Ammonite is a level 1 light attribute reptile tuner monster with 500 attack, 200 defense. Its effect reads is whenever it's normal summon, you can target 1 level 4 or lower alien monster in your graveyard and special summon it, but you destroy that summon target at the end phase if you don't do anything with it. So a generic play that you can do is if you have your graveyard set up with alien shock troopers in the graveyard, normal summon Ammonite, special summon your shock trooper, and go into a level 5 synchro play. And then if you have extra level 4s out on the field, you can go for like a Trishula play if you wanted to, or an Xyz play if you want to make your Xyz summon first.
Yeah.
And then the 1 rescue rabbit, since we're playing a set of normal monsters, the 1 rescue rabbit it just puts in a lot of work. And it's always fun when you use rescue rabbit.
Opening rabbit's always good, just saying.
And then we've got 2 Kagito Kages to add to the reptile count. This is, for the most part, for your Xyz plays, so that you can go into your King of the Fairlands a lot quicker, your other Xyz monsters that you need for the certain situations. The one aspect for Kagito Kage, which I wish wasn't a factor, was that Kagito Kage can't be used for a synchro summon. Because I've had boards a couple times before this regional where I've had Kagito Kage out with my tuna monsters, and I've always thought I could go into like a Trishula play or just a level 5 synchro play with Kagito Kage, but I always forget about his condition where he can't be used as a synchro material.
Just to clarify, is the part about him not being able to use for synchro material is a condition, not an effect?
Yeah, it's more or less a condition effect. That
So basically, if you bring it back with Norden, it can still not be used for synchro material.
Yeah, that's pretty much the whole end all be all for Kagito Kage.
Yeah, so it's just for Xyz.
Yeah, but Kagito Kage works exceptionally well for that factor. And then the added engine I decided to add into it to help these reptiles at least fluctuate. I decided to run the Traptrix engine, so we're running 3 Traptrix Myrmilio and 2 Traptrix Diana. Myrmilio, whenever normal summoned, it searches out one of your Trapple cards from your deck, your normal trap card, Trapple cards. So that alone, this alone just gives you better opening plays that you can do if you don't open with any of your reptile monsters or your Kagito Kages.
Or your rabbit.
That too, and Traptrix Murmillo just basically gives you a little bit more defensive plays for when you start off a game. So just summon a Murmillo and search out your trap holes, and you're pretty much good for some defense. And then the Dianaz, whenever it's normal summon, you can special summon your Murmillo from the graveyard to defense position. So that helps with like your Xyz plays to continue your combos and your plays. And then their secondary effects is for Murmillo, whenever it's special summoned, destroys one of your opponent's back row. So this is really good for disrupting your opponent's pendulum scales, getting rid of certain back row. And then for Diana, whenever it's special summoned, you're able to target one of your trap hole cards in your graveyard, set it back to your field. But if you don't do anything with it by the end of your next turn, it is banished at the end of your next turn. So the Traptrix engine has worked actually really well. Almost better than the heroic engine that I was running earlier before, but I don't know. I'm still undecided on which engine I'm going to continue on with, but I think the Traptrix engine is going to be a stay for the time being. And then the one added reptile monster, X-Saber Palomaro, because a majority of the level 4 monsters in here are Earth attribute, so it just makes your Naturia Beast plays a lot more live. And then the rest of the monster count, we've got triple Max C. Nothing needs to be explained about this card. This card puts in a lot of work when it's used. Max C is just actually a really good hand trap. I could probably take it out for maybe something else, but the draw I just need to draw into my combo pieces because it's a swarm deck, and a swarm deck usually revolves around a lot of combos.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it for the monsters. It is 17 monsters, I believe.
Okay.
Now onto the spells, and it's a really minimal spell count, but it's worked all right anyways in the sense. We got 1 Allure Darkness, 1 Foolish Burial, Pot of Dichotomy, Raigeki, Twin Twisters, Upstart Goblin, and 2 Infusions.
Okay. And you mind filling us in about the that tech Allure Darkness?
Yeah, the reason I'm running Allure Darkness is originally I was running triple Upstart Goblins, but ever since it got hit to 1, I had to find some replacements to try and fill in the gaps, so to speak.
Just to re-add that consistency.
Yeah. So
and if I'm correct, you could just search the Kago Takage with King of the Feral Imps anyway, so your allure targets are searchable, so that explains why you're even running it.
Yeah, I would run the second one, but it wouldn't really work that well because I'm only running 2 targets. If I were to add the second Allure Darkness, I'd probably just bump up the Kageto Kage count to 3 just to circumvent that. And then the Pot of Dichotomy was also the third Upstart Goblin replacement. Because a majority of this deck is a lot of different monster types, so Pot of Dichotomy works really well in the sense. And then everything else is pretty self-explanatory. Infusion for your Narden plays. And that's it for the spells. And then for the traps, for the singles, we got 1 Bottomless.
So the Bottomless is obviously your main Murmillo target?
For the most part, yeah. 1 Chaos Trap Hole, Solemn Strike, and 1 Solemn Warning. Time Space Trap Hole of Spikes, and Vanity's Emptiness. So the reason I went for like singles of a majority of these cards, besides the Bottomless and the Vanities
and the Warning,
basically my philosophy behind playing singles of either traps and or spell cards is I want to try and have a lot of versatility in the deck, just for different situations and for different plays that I can do. For example, Time Space is the one of Time Space is good against decks that special summon a lot from either the extra deck or the hand. For example, Cosmos, use this against your opponent's summoned ships. Their effects will still go off, but you can use this just to...
it shuffles them back into decks, so you don't have to deal with them. And
it forces Cosmo to pretty much rebuild their hand and their fields. Trap Hole Spikes, the newest one from Shining Victories. I like this card a lot because it adds like a little bit of a burn factor, kind of like a cowboy for a game.
It's like a Ring of Destruction, but in trap hole form, basically, is what it really is.
Yeah, and a lot of other players have kind of described it as a magic cylinder combined with Mirror Force in a way.
I'd say it's more like Ring of Destruction, really.
Yeah.
I think destruction meets mirror force.
Probably for that factor. And the one solemn strike, only reason I'm running one solemn strike is basically because I don't have any other copies with me at my disposal. But besides that, I feel only running one solemn strike is perfectly fine because I haven't really found the need to use effect negation too often. Plus, I've got other effect negations in the deck anyways, which we'll get to right now. For our multiples of traps, we got double Call the Haunted, really self-explanatory. This with your Norden plays, it's just a stupid combo. This plus your Murmillo plays, you're able to use this to pretty much like,
disrupt your opponent's spell and traps.
Yeah. And then we've got double Fiendish Chain. This is your extra monster effect negation that you can use throughout the time of the duel. So in the sense, these make up for the fact that I don't have extra solemn strikes. But one of the reasons I like running this card is because it's a continuous trap, which I'll get to in a bit with the extra deck. Got 2 Offering to the Snake Deity, and then 2 Storming Mirror Forces to round out the traps.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The Offering to the Snake Deity here is basically more or less the reptile version of Icarus attack.
Very good.
Yeah, except for instead of attributing to your reptile monster like Icarus attack, it destroys everything simultaneously.
Okay, yeah, so that means Massacre Restrict won't stop it.
Yeah, it basically destroys 1 reptile monster you control and 2 cards your opponent controls.
So basically, if you side in your Massacre Restricts for Mars, that card's still alive.
Yeah, pretty much. So this card is really fun to get off whenever you can. And that's it for the...
Is its destruction effect target?
Destruction effect does target, unfortunately. So
Okay. I mean, I was about to say, if that card doesn't target, that card's amazing.
Yeah, if it didn't target, it would be busted. But the fact that it does target, it kind of...
We can live with that.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to get around the ships that way, but...
But you have your trap holes for that.
Yeah. Trap holes and the Storming Mirror Forces as well.
Yep.
And then onto the extra deck. It's really simple and self-explanatory, except for maybe one of them. The one Norden to go with the instant fusions. I'll probably just leave it there.
It doesn't matter, really.
For our synchros, for our level 5s, we have 1 Armades, 1 Cosmic Fortress Golgar, the 1 Nat Beast, and then for our higher levels of synchros, we got the 1 Trishula, and then the 1 Leo.
So you mind explaining to the audience how you make some of these?
Sure.
I mean, the Armades is pretty self-explanatory, but you mind explaining the Golgar?
Yeah, for Armades, it's your generic level 5 synchro, so you can make it with pretty much anything within the deck. Cosmic Fortress Golgar is probably my favorite synchro in the entire deck, probably next to Trishula, simply because...
Well, Trishula is just the best.
Yeah, but this goes along with the Alien Archetype, and its stat line is probably one of my factors that I like of it, because it's probably the only level 5 synchro monster that has the highest stat line of any level 5 synchro monster, which is 2600. But its stats read as follows. It's a light attribute reptile synchro monster with 2600 attack, 1800 defense, and its effect reads, or its summoning requirements is 1 alien Ammonite plus 1 or more non-tuner alien monsters.
So basically Ammonite plus Shock Troopers.
Yeah, essentially. That's pretty much how you make this card. And its effect reads, once per turn, you can select any number of face-up spell trap cards on the field, and return those cards to the owner's hands, and distribute new alien counters on monsters equal to the number of cards you returned.
So basically, what the important part is just returning the face-up spell and traps. The alien counters don't necessarily mean anything.
They don't mean anything for that at that moment, but that effect alone allows you to recycle and reuse your Call of the Haunted and your Fiendish Chains.
And bounce back, like stuff like your opponent's Pendulum Scales.
Yeah, to get more alien counters, because you can use Golgar's effect to
basically just loop those cards.
Yeah, and looping this card, if you've used up a Norden, is just really an awesome...
So basically this card is your DeLorean.
More or less, essentially. And also, if you're able to loop your Call of the Haunted, you can just Murmillo pop over and over and over again. And then its secondary effect is you can Remove 2 alien counters from anywhere on the field to destroy one card your opponent controls.
And what exactly would you place these alien counters on?
I, for the most part, always place the alien counters after I use its first effect on Golgar itself. Just so I know where they are.
But the counters can just be placed anywhere on the field.
Yeah, they can be placed on any one of your other monsters. They can be placed on your opponent's monsters, which is primarily what the alien archetype does.
Uh-huh.
And then you just remove 2 alien counters to target one card your opponent controls.
Okay, so it has dual utility.
Yeah, it has a lot of...
So that's utility. A legitimate boss monster. You mind explaining how you make Leo? Because I can understand like Trish, but how would you make a level 10 in this deck?
So for the Leo, I didn't have it in originally, but I added it in just because there have been times where I've had a negated or at least a Fiendish chained level 5 synchro, such as my Armades. If I summoned it out on the field and they like Fiendish chained it, or they stopped it with like say against a PK Fire with a Fog Blade.
Yeah, Fog Blade.
And the same can go for Golgar.
Or Nat Beast.
If I'm able to summon out say another Alien Omnite and summon out another Shock Trooper, I can just do sort of the same play as I would for going to level 5 synchro.
But you just synchro climb.
Yeah, but synchro climb up onto Leo.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that way you don't have to worry about your stuff being targeted.
And Leo itself is able to run over Dark Destroyer without any problems.
And Dark Eclipser, it just gets over big things.
And since Leo can't really be destroyed by any effects or targeted.
Yeah, just targeted.
And targeted, I believe.
He's hard to out.
Yeah, so Dark Destroyer can be kind of a difficult factor for it to get over this card.
Yeah.
And then for the Xyz factor of this deck, really simple Xyz monsters. We got one Abyss Dweller, Castel, Deguster Emerald, Dark Rebellion, Diamond Direwolf, Cowboy, King of the Feral Imps, and then the Utopia Engine.
Mm-hmm.
The main Xyz monster I mostly try and go into is King of the Feral Imps to continuously search out your reptiles, because you want to try and get a majority of those cards in your hand.
Yep.
Your main targets that you want to search are most likely your Kage-to-Kages and your
Ammonites. Yeah.
Because your Shock Troopers you want to leave in the deck until you are able to top deck Rescue Rabbit.
Yep.
So that factor alone plays in really nicely. And then my other 2 favorite Xyz monsters in the deck are probably Deguster Emerald and Castel, because with these 2 cards I'm able to...
Deguster Emerald basically has dual utility because you're playing normals.
Yeah, and you can also use this to recycle your extra deck monsters. So if you have a Fallen King of the Feral Imps or your any of your synchros, you can use it
Golgar.
To recycle those back into the deck to continue to bring them back out later.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Castel, you can, if you're able to make an Xyz summon while you have Deguster Emerald out on the field and you've used up Deguster Emeralds of both materials, you can summon out your Castel and use Castel to
spin it back,
and then pretty much do the
just make it again.
Yeah, but that's pretty much the entire extra deck.
Okay, sure. And side deck?
And side deck is self-explanatory. No need to explain too much of it. 2 Gamma Seal, just to get rid of problematic monsters such as Infinity, Dark Planet. Luckily, I didn't run into any Dark Planets.
You didn't run into Dark Planet builds of Cosmo?
Nope, I only ran into basically Dark Destroyers most of the time. So, but I never cited these in actually, which is kind of sad. But
I'd say I'd cite those in against Cosmo, but that's just because they're easier to get over.
And then I can also use this against Burning Abyss, and sometimes I can probably use this against Monarchs, but I never ran into any of those 2. 1 Speedroid Mango against OTK decks, because for Mermail, since I'm running Max C, I can use Max C against them.
And hopefully draw into that.
Yeah, and if I have this in hand, I can just summon Manko and switch other monsters to defense. For spells, I ran 2 Dark Holes. Again, against the Cosmo matchup, I just need a lot more destruction just to get over their ships and have them use up a lot of their resources to try and rebuild. 2 Prohibitions. This just a really nice tech that I decided to throw in last minute. You can use this to call certain cards against your opponent, the ones that you've seen the most of. For example, I went up against a Cleaford player and I used this to call Cleaford Scout, and then I had my second one in hand a turn later, and I used it to call Cleaford Helix because you want to try and keep
oh yeah, you called Helix so that your Prohibition can get popped.
Yeah, so that their only other out to try and get rid of it
would be Twin Twisters
and Stealth.
Stealth bounce it, but then you could just reactivate it. So you're just outing it for a turn.
And the fact that it's also a continuous spell card,
you can bounce it with Golgar.
Yeah, to reuse it and call anything differently if I need to.
Yeah.
And then an extra Twin Twister to help with the back row heavy decks. For traps, I decided to side in a second Chaos Trapple. Never really sided in the second one, actually.
You never saw the matchups you wanted it for.
Yeah, and most of the matchups I kind of took out the one in my main deck anyways. 2 Anti-Spell Fragrance.
I bet you sided that in for Cleafort.
Sided this in for mostly the Pendulum matchups, as well as against other decks that played a lot of spells.
How often did you see it?
Not too often. I think I only saw it once.
I guess that's why I guess if you're playing Anti-Spell Fragrance, it's best just to side 3.
Yeah, but I only saw it once the entire time. 2 Imperial Iron Wall for really self-explanatory. Against Cosmo, this is really good.
And especially since I don't think that you're siding restricts, you probably would definitely put that in against Monarchs.
Yeah, I'd probably put it in for Monarchs to stop their Pantheism plays. Then 2 Shadow Imprisoning Mirrors, because a majority of this format has come down to dark monsters.
Yep.
With Dark Destroyer
and all the new Shiny Victory Cosmos support.
And then of course Burning Abyss. They're all dark attributes, so this counteracts. And then of course against Monarchs, this just helps.
Yeah,
as well.
it stops a solid half of their deck.
So yeah, overall, I think for my side deck, I'd probably change the Prohibitions because they did work, but they didn't work as well as I had hoped.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably the Gamma Seals, but everything else in the side deck actually worked pretty well. And then probably take out the extra Chaos Trapple.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of summon negations anyways, and that's pretty much it.
Okay. So, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next deck profile.